A very good evening to friends and comrades. I, on behalf of AIDSO, welcomes you on the discussion The Relevance of the Study of Jyotirao Phule, an outstanding torchbearer of India Renaissance. I also welcome Comrade Saurav Mukherjee, former General Secretary of All India Democratic Students Organization. साथियों, हम उस समय की बात कर रहे हैं जब शिक्षा उच्च वर्ग और जाति के लोगों तक सीमित थी। शिक्षण संस्थानों का निर्माण भी इसी वर्ग द्वारा किया जाता था और राज्य की या सरकार की इसमें कोई भागीदारी नहीं थी। पितृसत्ता और जातिवाद से ग्रसित उस समाज में शिक्षा दलितों और महिलाओं के लिए निषेध थी। जो छात्र शिक्षा ले भी रहे थे वे वेद वेदांत और उपनिषद तक सीमित थे। ब्रिटिश उपनिवेशवाद ने आर्थिक क्षेत्र में तो अपना आधिपत्य जमा लिया था, लेकिन सामाजिक क्षेत्र में उसकी दखल अंदाजगी ना के बराबर थी। नतीजतन पूंजीवादी अर्थव्यवस्था और सामंतवादी मूल्यबोध ने उस समाज में उस समय के समाज का गठन किया था। ऐसे ही एक समाज में जन्मे थे ज्योतिबा फूले। 11 अप्रैल 1927 को महाराष्ट्र के सतारा में एक फूले समाज, जो एक कृषक परिवार है, उसमें उनका जन्म हुआ था। उस समय की जो सामाजिक स्थिति थी, इससे यह अंदाज़ा लगाना मुश्किल नहीं है कि फूले भी शायद वही खेती का रास्ता चुनते। लेकिन ब्रिटिश साम्राज्यवाद ने अंग्रेजी शिक्षा को उस समय के भारत में लागू किया। मिशनरी के आगमन से दलितों, पिछड़ों और महिलाओं के लिए भी शिक्षा के रास्ते खुले। इस माध्यम का इस्तेमाल ज्योतिबा फूले ने भी किया। शिक्षा हासिल करने के साथ साथ उन्होंने एक मुहिम छेड़ी, जो थी अपने समाज में वहाँ के जो पिछड़े और महिला हैं, उनके लिए शिक्षा को उन तक पहुँचाने की। ये बात आज के समय में सोचने और कहने में जितनी आसान रह रही है, उस समय में वो उतनी ही मुश्किल थी। लेकिन वैज्ञानिक और जनतांत्रिक शिक्षा की ज्योति जो उन्होंने कभी बुझने नहीं दी, उस संघर्ष को उन्होंने आगे बढ़ाया और उनके इस संघर्ष में न केवल ज्योतिबा फूले बल्कि सावित्रीबाई फूले, फातिमा शेख जैसे अनेकों समाज सुधारक और शिक्षाविद शामिल हुए। आज जब हम यहाँ पर इकट्ठा हुए हैं, तो इस परिचर्चा का मुख्य उद्देश्य है ज्योतिबा फूले के विचारों को समझना और आज के दौर में उसकी जो उपयुक्तता है उनके विचारों की, उसको और अच्छे से जानना। इसी विषय पर बात रखने के लिए मैं हमारे आज के मुख्य वक्ता कॉमरेड सौरभ मुखर्जी को आमंत्रित करती हूँ कि वो आज के इस विषय पर अपनी बात रखें। कॉमरेड सौरभ मुखर्जी।
रखे गए हैं वो बहुत ही प्रासंगिक और चर्चा सभा में मैं वर्तमान नेतृत्व उनको जारी अभिवादन और आज से 10 साल कम सारे चीज याद आ रहा है। तो AIDSO के साथ जुड़ा हुआ, लेकिन चर्चा का जो है महात्मा ज्योतिराव फूले, हम कोशिश करें कि उनका संघर्ष और विकास के पृष्ठभूमि में जीवन संघर्ष का तात्पर्य समझने का कर रहा हूं, लेकिन मुझे भी और अच्छी तरह और गहरा के साथ पहली बात कि महात्मा फुले, जिनको महात्मा नाम था, उनका जीवन जो 19वीं सदी के शुरुआत से, मतलब 1827 से 19वीं सदी के अंतिम दौर तक था, ये हमारे देश के लिए एक संक्रमण काल, मतलब दो हिस्सा में बांटा जा सकता है, जबकि 27 से 87 तक का जो काल, जब भारत एक देश नहीं था, इसका विभिन्न हिस्सा में विभिन्न हुकूमत उस समय, जैसे दिल्ली में जाफर का राज, अयोध्या में शाह का राज एक समय काल में, इंग्लिश, so they are requesting me to speak in English. I can comfortably switch over to should I speak in English? This is a transition phase. The lifetime of Jyotirao Phule, which spans from 1827 to 1890. This period is a period of transition from, that is in the first part 1827 से 1858 तक का जो पीरियड, इस समय इंडिया एक देश लगभग नहीं था. इंडिया वॉज नॉट ए single unified country. At that time, at Delhi, there was the rule of Bahadur Shah Jafar. In western part of India, there had been the rule of Peshwa of Maratha, independent rulers, the rule Sultan Nizam, and in some portion now, so from 1890, this is the period in which colonial rule consolidated and as a result of that, as an antithesis of that, Indian nationalism arose and so Mahatma Jyotirao Phule was one of the stalwarts of Indian Renaissance. भारत के पुनर्जागरण का एक महत्वपूर्ण व्यक्तित्व थे। पुनर्जागरण का मतलब क्या है? व्हाट इज द मीनिंग ऑफ Renaissance? That is, in the feudal age, entire society was governed by kings or emperors and priests on the basis of scriptures. It was a totalitarian rule when the life of people was entirely determined by the scriptures, by the priest and the ruling class in the name of God. In Europe, for the first time, against this, a struggle developed for the first time in England in 17th century. Then it spread to other countries in Italy under the leadership of Mazzini Garibaldi, in France under the ideological leadership of Rousseau, Voltaire, and it also spread to other countries. The main content of it was a new man-centric approach. Earlier, in the earlier culture and philosophical outlook in the days of feudal rule, it was a totalitarian rule and everything was decided in the name of God and with the dictate of the scriptures. But during the Renaissance and during the bourgeois democratic movement following Renaissance in 17th, 18th and 19th century in different countries of Europe, there was a revolutionary movement for republic, for establishment of, instead of to replace the totalitarian rule of kings and emperors by republic, the demand of freedom of individuals arose, the demand of secular, scientific and democratic education arose, man-centric approach was visible in art, literature, culture, everywhere. That man is the center of everything, not God. So this was the content of Renaissance. But the Renaissance movement preceded with the religious reformation movement. The pursuit of religion for several thousand years in different countries caused many corrupt practices in the social life in different countries. Different corrupt practices, variety of corrupt practices. So, the first phase of Renaissance in Europe, which is called rebirth, period of rebirth, this rebirth was mainly the religious reformation. Reformation of religion, religious fundamentalism, and different fundamentalist ideas. And the second part, which is known as New Work, where totally secular approach, religion will be strictly a matter of personal belief, religion will have no connection with education, with governance of the country, with law, judicial system. Religion will be a matter of individual belief. This was the second stage. Now, in our country, with Rammohan, the first stage of rebirth started. Rammohan started the religious reformation by the beginning of 19th century. It created deep impact. First, he started a movement to ban the age-old ritual of burning of satis, Satiraho, burning of satis on the pyre of her husband, dead husband. It was considered as a glorious act in Hindu religion. Rammohan fought against it, and he ultimately was successful in introducing a law banning the burning of satis. Not only this religious reformation, Rammohan started a new education movement. At that time, the East India Company was planning to introduce some schools, separate schools for Muslims, which will teach in
and Farsi language or Urdu language, separate schools for Hindus, separate institutions for Hindus, which will teach in Sanskrit language, etc., etc. And there will be Christian missionary schools. So they proposed and proceeded to establish Benares Hindu school, which later was converted to Hindu University, Aligarh Muslim University, etc. But after hearing this proposal, Rammohan said, if there is no need to impart the Sanskritic education to our youths, it will keep them in darkness. What is there we know for the last 2000 years, so there is nothing new in it. Modern education, scientific education is the need of the hour, and that should be introduced. And Ram Mohan started a new education movement, a movement for secular, scientific, and democratic education. After Ram Mohan, in Western India, Jyotirao Phule was the torchbearer. The struggle which Ram Mohan initiated was carried forward in Eastern India by Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar and in Western India by Jyotirao Phule. They were almost contemporaries. Jyotirao Phule, there is a difference between them, that Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar was born in a very poor family, but still a Brahmin family. Very poor rural Brahmin family. But Jyotirao Phule was born in a not only very poor family, but a family belonging to a very, very backward caste. They were Malis, that is florists. Their work was to supply flour, garland, etc. to the Peshwas. It was the profession of their family. And so the name Phule came from Phule, that is flower. The title Phule. Actually, at first, Jyotirao Phule was admitted to a primary school in 1836. Some primary schools had been introduced in different parts around Bombay and Pune. There, in one such primary school, Jyotirao Phule was admitted. But after a few months of study there, his father, due to advice of some of his Brahmin friends, leaders, some local Brahmins, that why a boy of backward caste should go to school and study. Because in our traditional education, the backward castes, the Sudras, are not supposed to take education. The scriptures have completely divided their profession. The Brahmins will be teachers, preachers, and they will do puja, home, and all such rites. The Kshatriyas, they are the warrior class, they will be the ruling class, they will rule, they will be the administrators, and they will be the fighters, soldiers, and Vaishyas will be the merchants, and the Sudras will do all other work considered as low category of work, like farming, like weaving, without which a society cannot persist. But all these things are done by them who have no recognition in the society, and education for them was a taboo in our traditional concept. And education for girls was a double taboo, not only for the backward castes, but also for the girls, women of Brahmin and upper caste families. Education was totally taboo in the Hindu religious society. So, his father, under the pressure of his colleagues circle, those who were Brahmins, under their pressure, withdrew him from the school and employed him in for producing vegetables and gardening, doing gardening. But after that, some of his friends One of them was a Urdu Farsi teacher, Mohammadi Beg, and one Christian person said this boy is quite intelligent and he should be admitted into some school. And Phule, after a few years, he already did a good reading and writing job during his primary school teaching. And afterwards, Phule, there were signs of talent in Phule in his very childhood itself. So he was again introduced, again readmitted after a few years gap. He was readmitted in a Scottish missionary school in Pune. There he was taught in seclusion. There he came into contact with students coming from different segments of the society, and also there he came in contact with the thoughts of great men, particularly the writing of Thomas Paine, the famous, world famous philosopher of Renaissance. His book Rights of Man touched Phule's heart. He was deeply influenced by the Renaissance thinking. Thomas Paine was a famous Renaissance thinker, and his Rights of Man, this book, virtually brought in a qualitative change in his way of thinking. So after completion of school, Phule thought that education should be imparted to the backward castes. At that time, in his school days, he didn't have any injury towards Brahmins or upper castes. He mixed equally with Muslims, with Parsis, with Christians, and with upper caste Hindus equally. But one incident in his life, in his childhood, boyhood days, student days, when one of his Brahmin friends was being married, and while the marriage party was going to the bride's home, in this marriage party, he was the only exception, only non-Brahmin. Usually it is the custom that the marriage party of a Brahmin groom will constitute only Brahmins, only upper castes. Jyotirao was the only exception there, and one senior in the team scolded him and actually driven him away. How dare you to come here and consider yourself equal with the other Brahmins? Telling in this way, virtually insulting him, he was driven back. This incident caused a deep injury in his mind. Although his father tried to convince him to accept it easily, it is the social reality. He understood that it is the social reality. He didn't have any personal grudge or grievance against those persons who insulted him. His friend also, although he was sympathetic, but he couldn't come to his rescue there. He understood that it is the social reality, but he took a strong, firm decision to fight and change this social reality, to introduce the democratic norms, democratic culture within the society, to fight against any division of man with other men on the basis of caste and religion. So, this is a strong beginning in Phule's life struggle. Afterwards, when he first started to teach girls, Savitri Devi Phule, his wife, was also a great lady. She was also ahead of her time, much ahead of her time. She didn't have virtually any opportunity to go to school, but she learned many things, learns to read, not only read and write. She did in-depth reading with the help of Jyotirao. And she, in spite of unbelievable attack and insult by the upper caste and Brahmins around this school, she continued to do teaching in the first ever girls' school in Maharashtra. First ever girls' school where only 8 girls studied, and each day Savitri Devi Phule had to take with her 3 saris, because from the beginning, when she went towards the school, the lads of Brahmin family, youngsters of Brahmin family, they used to hurl upon her all the dirty things, stools, mats, and all the dirty things. So when she went reached school, she used to change the cloth, knowing fully well that again during the return journey, this will be similarly become dirty. So she had to wear 3 saris every day. In this way, thus teaching and this school was going on. Phule was trying to collect finance to continue the school because this teaching was not at all profitable. There was no salary. They were doing it as a struggle for reformation of the society. But a very important turn of event occurred in this time, that his father said he will have to, under the pressure of the entire society, that is the society dominated by Brahmins and upper castes. His father subdued due to that pressure and told Jyotiba that you will have to leave teaching, close down the school, or you will have to leave my house. You cannot continue both together. So after this discussion, Phule decided to leave his paternal house, and Savitri Devi Phule also left the house along with him in dire poverty. They had to close down the school for some time due to no fund, no finance. But afterwards, very soon, Phule tried to gather some fund. They had nothing to eat. They had nothing for clothing, but they started to run the school. In this way, very soon, within 10 years, in the 50s, Jyotirao established 3 schools in different localities of Pune, 3 girls' schools. And very soon, good number of people who came in contact with modern education, they started to appreciate the endeavor and struggle of Jyotirao Phule, because he was not catering any religious teaching there. Rather, he was catering education on scientific subjects like geography, like literature, English, mother tongue, mathematics, such things were taught in those schools. The content also was secular. However, this was the beginning of Jyotirao Phule, and he was the pioneer of this Renaissance struggle in Maharashtra, in entire Maharashtra, not only Pune. Gradually his fame fade out in different parts of Maharashtra. And at that time, Phule was the pioneer, but as British government after 1857 introduced the British rule was introduced, the rule of East India Company has been converted into the rule of British imperialism. There, some new system started, and in this system, it was possible for Jyotirao Phule to continue his endeavor to cater education among the women and among the students of backward castes and communities. Education was not at all available to them. In that time, some progressive societies started to crop up in different parts of Maharashtra. Meanwhile, in Bengal, as the Renaissance movement started much early, by the end of 18th century with Raja Ram Mohan Rai. So, in Bengal already, the Renaissance movement gathered momentum. Already, the movement, modern education movement also became a part and parcel of the Renaissance movement. So, in this period, Jyotirao Phule not only limited him in just catering education, but apart from education, he started also a social reform movement. He was deeply moved by the social reform movement of banning of Satidaha by Ram Mohan Rai. And after that, as a continuer of Ram Mohan's struggle, Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, by the beginning of 50s, 1850s, started his endeavor of widow remarriage. There also, from Calcutta, in different parts of Pune and Mumbai, also some groups cropped up which started the endeavor to convert widow remarriage into a movement. Jyotirao Phule also was deeply influenced by it, and he started some social reform movement in this period, that is from 1855, 56, 57 and afterwards. In this social reform movement, it is noteworthy and it is almost have no similar incident in India at that time. After the death of his father, although Jyotirao Phule left his paternal house, but he has deep respect and regard for his father. In spite of differences in thinking. But after his death, he didn't do any religious rite, that is Shraddha, or any such religious rite. Rather, to observe the death, to express condolence, he brought many poor students, distributed books, pen, paper, etc. to them, and fed them. Poor and backward caste students, and physically handicapped persons and beggars. In memory of his father, instead of doing any religious ritual, Shraddha, he fed them, gave them books and writing materials. That is, to honor the memory of our father was to teach the younger generation to read and write, to be conscious. It was the message in his struggle. And afterwards, he also started a widow remarriage movement. In this widow remarriage movement, he gave marriage without presence of any Brahmin, without presence of any Brahmin, Purohit, that is any priest, without presence of any priest. It was not possible, neither in Muslim religion nor in Hindu religion, to give a marriage. Today, in civil marriage, we know marriage is done through registration, but Phule virtually started that publicly the married couple will declare an oath to take each other as husband and wife, and through that the marriage will be accepted and recognized. Phule tried to, afterwards, much afterwards in the 60s, middle of 60s, he developed an organization, Satya Shodhak Samaj, which tried to create this widow remarriage without any priest. Not only widow remarriage, even normal marriage without any priest. Condolence of death without any priest. The Satya Shodhak Samaj tried to percolate this as a social movement. This is a very important struggle. However, these are the second aspect, that is the struggle of Mahatma Phule against the fundamentalist, religious and corrupt practices in religion. Third aspect of Jyotirao Phule was that while he was in dire poverty, running 3-4 schools, running an organization. So, in order to maintain himself and these schools, he collected some money from friends and sympathizers, but he started a business to supply stone chips to the municipality while some construction was done in the Pune municipality. While doing this work, he observed that the laborers, mostly coming from the backward communities, those who are working day and night in the construction works in Pune and in Mumbai as well, they are being extremely exploited by the municipal authority, by the contractors, by the financiers. They are being extremely exploited. And he started through a memorandum, through a first historic memorandum, to stop the exploitation of workers because they are the creators. This was the language. In this period, he also observed that the British rule, British dependence, with the advent of British rule, national market developed in India. You must understand that for formation of a country, this is a question of Marxist understanding, that some say cultural nationalism, some say geographical nationalism, but we know that a nation is created on the basis of a national market. And the national market is possible only when international nation is connected with roadways, with rail lines, with telegraph and other communication systems. Because for development of the national market, development of industry is required. And this process started only after the advent of British rule since 1858. After 1858, British started to develop the roadways, railways throughout the country, not for the benefit of the Indians, but for their colonial imperialist exploitation, in order to exploit the natural resources, in order to exploit the human resources, the cheap labor power of this country. The Britishers will invest in India. Industries will crop up. They will exploit extreme profit that will be sent to England. But for that, it is not possible without, unless the entire country is connected through the roadways, railways, and communication network. So, after development of this, nationalism as antithesis of national market, nationalism as the superstructure of development of national market. When textile industries were developing in Gujarat and in Mumbai surroundings, in different parts of Maharashtra, when jute industries were developing in Bengal and surrounding states, when tea industry was developing in North Bengal and Assam, it will be sold to entire country, and for that, it will be the products of national market, and for that, the road link, etc., is very much important. But with the creation of this road network, railway network, and national connectivity, that is telegraph network, at that time only post and telegraph was the means of connection of the country. Nationalism developed as the superstructure of national market. Nationalism developed. This is one country. Leading Marxist thinker of this era, Comrade Shivdas Ghosh, on the basis of whose thoughts the IDSO is struggling all over the country, he showed that a nation develops on the basis of this national market. He showed that in earlier feudal ages, during the Mughal rule, Rana Pratap fought against Mughal Badshah, but that fight was only for Chittor fort. Shivaji fought for Pune Satara, at west for Maharashtra. But by the end of 19th century, the possibility of struggle started with the development of nationalism, national sentiment, national ideology. Earlier, as a reaction to tremendous British exploitation of the peasants, there were many sporadic peasant movements. Several hundreds of sporadic peasant movements occurred by the end of 18th century and 19th century as a reaction to the exploitation, tremendous taxation by British and their stooge exploiters, comprador bourgeoisie and capitalist landlords, those who purchased lands to become landlords. Against their exploitation, such popular mass uprising outbursts were there, and during the formative days of Jyotirao Phule, in Maharashtra also, at least 20 such tremendous movements burst out. And Phule observed the result and the developments of all these movements with curiosity. Phule, in this period, he was imbibed with the spirit of nationalism. This is the third phase of his life. In his famous book Slavery, he has wrote he was against the Brahminics exploitation of the lower castes. But it is the specialty of Phule that personally he had no personal grievance or mentality of revenge against the Brahmins. He didn't fight the Brahmins. Rather, in his Shodhak Samaj, there were many representatives of the Brahmin community also. In his other endeavors, many his compatriots belong to progressive Brahmin community, not the backward, dominant and corrupt Brahmin community, but the progressive upper castes. He didn't have any personal vengeance mentality against them. In this period, Phule, in his famous book, Slavery, Gulamgiri, wrote that it is true that we learned nationalism from the Brahmins. He recognized it. He said that the backward castes are virtual slaves of the Brahmins. He showed how the Brahmins, through different religious rites, are exploiting the backward castes. But he also recognized in slavery that the Brahmins taught us patriotism, taught us nationalism. This he recognized in slavery. This shows the attitude of he, in this period, time and again, Congress was at the formative stage and Congress was formed. But he said the Congress is composed of only landlords and industrialists. And eventually, all of them are upper castes also. Where are the poor peasants? Where are the workers there? So this cannot be a real national struggle. During Mumbai Congress, he didn't participate in it, but he sent a memorandum. He organized a demonstration. He fought against the taxation system and exploitation of the peasants by the middlemen, by the landlords and their paid agents, those who belong to upper caste. And he demanded that unless in the freedom movement, the workers who are being exploited and the peasants who are feeding the country and who are living a miserable life, unless they are involved in the freedom movement, it will be a farce. This is what, one after another. In Hunter Commission, by the end of 90s, British government formed the Hunter Education Commission to survey the condition of system of education in India. There he gave a number of representations. There he placed a very interesting demand which has the root of democratic education. He said that up till now there is private management of the schools or the schools managed by missionaries or the government. He said the management of the schools should be patriotic. So the primary schools and secondary schools should be, management of the primary schools and secondary schools should be given to the citizen, to the people. And citizen does not mean only the upper caste people, lower castes, exploited people, whose students will go to school. Their guardians should have a representation in the managing committee. This demand he placed to the Hunter Commission. It is a new kind of demand. Here in Bengal at that time, Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar was also fighting for autonomy of the Calcutta University. He said the Calcutta University was founded Calcutta, Bombay and Madras University simultaneously in 1858. And during its formative period, Vidyasagar played a crucial role. But he left that if it is a just institution for Britishers, what is the use of it? There should be an autonomy of the institution. His demand he raised. That is education by the educationists. But Vidyasagar's demand was mostly concerned for higher education, while Phule's demand was that even primary schools and the secondary schools, the governance of it should be handed over to the people. What AIDSO demands today as secular, scientific and democratic education, you see how this demand took shape during the Renaissance and during the freedom movement of our country. It merged with the freedom struggle. Phule raised this demand. Vidyasagar raised this demand. Acharya Prafulla Chandra said, freedom first, freedom second, freedom always. That for money from British government, we cannot sell our institutions. If necessary, we'll go door to door to beg money to cater education to our students. Such is the struggle of Jyotirao Phule. There are many aspects of his life, some which I know, I can relate that. There are many stories, interesting stories, but that will take time. I think the first part of this discussion was disturbed due to some technical reason. We don't have much time. I must conclude. But I must say, after death of Jyotiba Phule in 1890, it is a tragedy that Satyasodhak Samaj and his entire movement was converted into a anti-Brahmin movement, not a movement for democratization of the society, not a movement for liberation of the one portion of the society dominated by religious rule, but rather it become an instrument for fight of the scheduled castes against the Brahmins. In this question, a very important teaching of leading Marxist thinker of this era, Comrade Siddharth Ghosh, should be recalled, and with that I shall conclude. He showed that it is a shortcoming of our nationalism, that when nationalism develops on the basis, economical basis of nationalism is the national market. The political basis is the national ideology and nationalist movement, and the cultural basis of it, that the groups and subgroups, religious, ethnic groups, all will be merged to one nation. In Europe, in this manner, nations were formed, in which there are different ethnicities, different linguistic groups, different religions, but all were merged to one nation. Comrade Siddharth Ghosh showed that this process started in India by the middle of 19th century through formation of the national market. Economically, national market developed. National bourgeois class of India developed, national capitalist class. India economically became a nation, but culturally, the struggle which was required, the struggle which was conducted by Ram Mohan, by Vidyasagar, by Jyotiba Phule, the social reformation struggle, just by passing a law, it is not possible. That the social inadequacies, the bad things of the feudal society, the worst culture of the feudal society, it is prevalent in our society. And a political, cultural struggle should be waged against it uncompromising way. But it couldn't remain uncompromising. Why? It remained truncated and half-baked. आधा अधूरा रहा. क्यों? Why? क्योंकि because of the compromising character of our nationalist movement. Rather, Hindu revivalist character. British introduced the two-nation theory. British understood that if this so large country, which has a population almost 50 times larger than England itself, such a large kingdom if to be dominated, then there must be the divide and rule policy. The Indians should be oppressed by Indians, and for that Indians should be divided on the basis of religion. Hindus should fight Muslims, Muslims should fight Hindus. So they introduced two-nation theory in our history, and on the basis of that, even our great nationalist historians, even our great nationalist leaders who had tremendous struggle, honesty, dedication, sacrifice in their life, they were also muddled, confused through this two-nation theory. So the nationalism became Hindu religion-oriented nationalism. There are many non-communal leaders in Congress, but the ideology was Hindu religion-oriented nationalism, which could not encompass, could not emotionally involve not only the Muslims, even Comrade Shivdas Goswami, even the lower caste people of Hindu religion could not be involved in this movement properly. So Scheduled Caste Federation developed. Scheduled Caste Federation announced if freedom comes through this Hindu religion-oriented nationalism, then it will be a dominance of Brahmins and upper castes. There will be no place for the scheduled caste, no place for Muslims or for Christians. So, in this manner, the freedom struggle became divided. And British utilized this divide and rule policy. And the pathetic result of it, outcome of it, was the division of our country. Today we see that in politics, in vote politics, Phule tried to convert backward communities and castes into human beings at par with the people. But today we see that this difference of caste and community has become a subject matter of creating vote bank. So, not unification of the people, human beings, which was the dream of Jyotirao Phule, which was the dream of Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, Rammohan. Unification of all Indian people on the basis of ideology and culture. Rather, the vote bank politics now creating conflict of interest of scheduled castes and Brahmins, movement, counter movement, and all such things are going on. And it is a tragedy that name of Phule are being revered by even those who are doing such vote of politics. Many vote bank politicians, some are emerging as the Masiha of scheduled castes, backward tribes, etc. And actually they are not trying to unite the people, but they are pursuing their career as a politician to become a powerful minister, to become a MLA, MP. This politics is creating further division. British is gone, but this divide and rule policy is thriving in India today. So, if we are to pay homage to Mahatma Phule, we must understand his. He didn't maintain any personal grievance against any upper caste person. He had the struggle against the social evil. So, nowadays, through organizations like Satya Sodhak Samaj, it played its role in 19th century, but it will not be possible. It is the task of DSO to unite the students, the young soldiers of DSO, who are carrying the banner of secular, scientific and democratic education, education for all, education for the downtrodden people, education for the who are fighting against the suicide of students, fighting against commercialization and communalization of education. When they will study the life and struggle of Mahatma Phule, life and struggle of Vidyasagar, life and struggle of Ram Mohan, life and struggle of Acharya Pishirai, other great men who fought for secular, scientific and democratic education, education for all, irrespective of caste, creed, sex and economic status. So young fighters of AIDS who are carrying this glorious banner, they must have the pride in their mind that they are the real representatives of the struggle of Jyotirao Phule or Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar. They are carrying it in a newer context, in a qualitatively changed situation. They have a break with these great men, as well as they are the real continuators of this struggle. With this pride in mind, with this sense of dignity in mind, AIDSO should fight in every corner of the country, should hold aloft the glorious banner of secular, scientific and democratic education, glorious banner of AIDSO. With this I conclude. Inkılap Zindabad, AIDSO.
Thank you, Comrade Saurav Mukherjee. The whole discussion was not just informative and interesting, but it's thought-provoking as well. मुझे नहीं लगता कि इस बेहतर डिस्कशन के बाद आगे कुछ और कहने की ज़रूरत है, लेकिन ये सभी साथियों को और जो लिसनर्स हैं उनके लिए कि आने वाला जो साल है वो ज्योतिबा फूले का 200वां जन्म शताब्दी जो वर्ष है, हम उसको 200th बर्थ एनिवर्सरी जो है हम ऑब्ज़र्व करेंगे। और जिस तरीके से यहाँ पर उनके विचारों को, उनके स्ट्रगल को डिस्कस किया गया है, सेक्युलर, साइंटिफिक, डेमोक्रेटिक, यूनिवर्सल एजुकेशन की बात जो यहाँ पर कॉमरेड सौरभ मुखर्जी ने भी कही है और ज्योतिबा फूले जिस स्ट्रगल को लेके आगे चलते गए हैं, मुझे लगता है ये हम सभी की जिम्मेदारी है कि उस मशाल को, उस विचार को हम सभी आज के समाज में, और क्योंकि आज के समाज की ज़रूरत भी है, इसको हम आगे लेके जाएंगे। और वो सपना जो हमारे देश के पुनर्जागरण के मनीषियों ने, हमारे देश के क्रांतिकारियों ने देखा, सेक्युलर, साइंटिफिक, डेमोक्रेटिक एजुकेशन का सपना और एक बेहतर समाज का सपना, उस सपने को हम लोगों को ही आगे बढ़ के पूरा करना है। इसी विचार के साथ हम आज की इस परिचर्चा को यहाँ पर ख़त्म करते हैं। एंड वी अपील यू ऑल टू बिकम अ पार्ट of this struggle, to strengthen this movement, to strengthen this struggle. Thank you all. Thank you, Comrade Saurav Mukherjee, once again.